Got him. Alright, boys and girls, welcome back to the channel. Today I wanted to go over the basics of how to shoot a rifle. So this right here, for the uninitiated, is an AR-15. Yeah, I know, scary word, black gun. But believe it or not, this is actually the most common rifle in the United States. And for good reason. They're fantastic guns, a very capable platform, super diverse platform that you can basically do anything with. And they're just base. However, there's many of you out there who own rifles like this who would not be doing Eugene Stoner very proud, because a lot of you who own rifles like this probably look like this when you go shooting. Oh, Jesus. Oh, God. Oh, that one hit me in the nose. So today I'm going to teach you guys the proper technique so that if you have a rifle like this, you also know how to use it really well, because that's kind of the whole point in this country that we live in of owning these rifles, is that we also know how to use them if we ever have to. So if you own one of these and you don't know how to use it very well, I mean, that's just try harder. Ooh, it is hotter than Queen Elizabeth's sock drawer out here. All right, so now I have put you in the position of someone intruding into my house. However, if this was realistic, I would be wearing much less clothes and you would have a lot more holes in you. But what I want to talk about first is stance. Now I'm going to show you guys what I see a lot with new shooters. They stand like this. Can you shoot like that? Sure. I'm a firm believer that you can hold a gun and stand however you want and still shoot accurately while shooting slowly. But when you need to start shooting faster, that's when you're going to have some problems. So the best way that I like to explain this to people is that when you're shooting a rifle, I also say this for pistols as well, whether you're shooting rifle or pistol, when you're standing, you pretty much just want to take a fighting stance. Like, you're going to imagine that you're about to throw hands, Scoden Studis style, with somebody. You're not standing like this. You're not standing like this. I feel gay just doing that. You're going to be standing like this. You have some bounce in your step. Your knees are bent. You have one foot kicked out behind the other one a little bit. You're leaned forward a little bit into it. That's the same kind of stance that you want to have when you're shooting a rifle. So just so you guys can see the difference here, if we're just talking about stance, I'm going to stand with my legs kind of perfectly square to the target, right next to each other, a little less than shoulder width apart. And I'm going to stand upright like this, and I'm going to shoot. And I want you to watch what the rest of my body does. See, I actually started to fall backwards right there because of all that recoil from the gun going into my shoulder slowly starts to push me back, especially if I started shooting really fast. Now, if I do a proper stance where I'm turned just a little bit to my dominant side away from the target, I kick one leg back. It doesn't really matter which leg you kick back. It kind of just depends which position you're shooting from. In an ideal situation, I have my right leg, my dominant leg, kicked back behind my shoulders. That's kind of the important thing, to have that leg behind your shoulder line. That's what's going to stop your body from getting pushed backwards while you're shooting, especially if you start to get into where you can shoot fully automatic weapons, or maybe you have a force reset trigger. You're really going to want that back leg kicked back like that. In the perfect situation, that's the stance you want. Now, of course, depending on the kind of training you're doing, whatever else, you might not be able to stand perfectly like that, but that's just a good place to start. So now you'll notice if I stand like this and I shoot, no problem controlling that gun and keeping it down. It's not pushing me backwards. So if you guys have any issues with recoil control when you're out shooting your rifle, that could be a big part of it. If you find that your whole upper body is kind of riding backwards while you're shooting, it's probably because your stance isn't very good and you need to lean forward just a little bit more into that gun when you shoot. All right, so now that you guys have a good idea about how your stance should be while you're shooting, now we can move up to the upper body and talk about how you're supposed to hold this here rifle. So first thing, we're going to talk about your shoulder, your dominant shoulder. I'm right-handed. That would be my right shoulder, and stock placement inside of your shoulder. So what I see a lot of people do is this. Let me get a little closer to the camera here. You can see I kind of have the bottom part of my stock in my shoulder, and then the rest of it, pistol brace for any very lovely ATF agents watching, this is a pistol brace, not a stock. Same concept though. Yeah, just a little bit in your shoulder here. And what that's going to do is you have your bolt right here in line with your barrel and with your buffer tube. And if you notice when I'm putting my stock like this, my buffer tube is actually above my shoulder. So what that's going to do is when the bolt reciprocates into the buffer tube, that's where all of that force pushing backwards is. And if that is above your shoulder, it's actually going to want to push past your shoulder, and you're going to have a lot more muzzle rise and uncontrollable recoil. So I can show you here, if I put that stock just barely on my shoulder. Not sure how well the camera can pick that up, but that muzzle is rising a lot. My red dot's kind of all over the place. What you want to do instead is take kind of the very back of your stock or pistol brace that is in line with the buffer tube, and you want to put that below your shoulder, kind of in that crease that's created between your bicep and this kind of nubby bone that sticks out the front of your shoulder. There's a little crack there, not really a crack, more like a saddle, a crevasse even. And you want to put that right in there, and you want it to be below the top of your shoulder. You don't want it sitting right on that bone. You'll find out the hard way why that's a bad idea. You want it right in that little valley. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about, though. But you want that right in there like that. And then at the same time, when you're bringing your gun up, you're actually kind of rolling your shoulder in, and it's almost pinching the stock between your big, very strong, muscular bicep and your nubby, bony shoulder. Just kidding, mine are both nubby and bony, but you get the idea. So just so you guys can see the difference here, we have bad stock placement and we have good stock placement. And that's another thing where if you're having a hard time controlling recoil, making sure that that stock is down below the top of your shoulder and that it's in there tight, that's going to make a huge difference for being able to control the recoil. All right, so now the last thing we're going to talk about is going to be your support hand. Your non-dominant hand, my left hand. The way that's going to go, let me switch sides here. There's nothing in this direction, by the way. I'm surrounded down in the bottom of a gravel pit, so every direction is safe for me. If you notice my hand here, how I have my thumb actually up over the top of the handguard. A lot of people think this looks weird and cringy, and I agree. If you hold the gun like this, it does look weird and cringy. But where I just have my thumb on top like so, what that's doing is letting me have a good grip on the rail itself. I'm not really squeezing up and down because I have a pressure pad for my light on top here. I'm squeezing side to side, but having my thumb on top like this lets me get the kind of this meaty part of my left hand in a good spot on the rail. You don't need to put your thumb up over the top. You can have it down like this if you want, whatever's comfortable. I think this is the most comfortable, and it lets me activate my light if I need to. But the idea of that is it just gives you a great purchase on the handguard up front. And what you're gonna do with that is pull backwards. I've heard a lot of shooters talk about when they shoot, they see their red dot come up and then they're pulling it back down, and then they see it come up and then they're pulling it back down. I think that that is not true. Because when I'm shooting, I'm not shooting slow enough that I can consciously go up, down, up, down, up, down. That's not how that works. I'm not, every single bullet, I am not pulling my sight back down every time. What I'm doing is I'm having constant backwards pressure into my shoulder. And if you combine that backwards pressure along with proper stock placement down low on your shoulder, what you're gonna get is just a very easy, that's a lot of gas. Very controllable recoil from your rifle. So when I'm shooting my rifle, I am not watching the red dot with every shot and consciously pulling it back down every time. I'm just keeping a consistent backwards pressure with my support hand into my shoulder. That is why I have this hand stop on this gun, is that just gives me even more surface area to put my bottom fingers against so that I can pull backwards into my shoulder. And as long as you have a consistent backwards pressure with your support hand and good stock placement low in your shoulder, it will be very easy for you to control the recoil of that rifle. For me, if you're talking about recoil control specifically, if you're having issues with recoil control, that is like my number 2 things, is having a good low stock placement in your shoulder where it's not above your shoulder line, and having that good consistent backwards pressure with your support hand as you shoot. As long as you have that backwards pressure, it will consistently pull that sight right back down where you want it, and you don't have to consciously think about pulling every shot back down. Oh, that's a lot of talking. It's too hot to talk this much. Okay, so those three things I would say are the most important aspects of having a good form for rifle shooting. Your good, stable stance with one foot kicked backwards, your feet a little bit wider than your shoulders, leaning slightly forward into the gun. That's what you want. Stock placement, not having the stock above your shoulder, having it below the line of your shoulder, having it good and in that kind of center part of the butt crack of your shoulder, if you will, and having that good consistent backwards pressure with your support hand, pulling that stock back tight into your shoulder. Those are the three most important things. Now, as with any professionality that people are really, really good at, there's a lot of little nuances and stuff like that that go into shooting a rifle. I don't want to go over all of them today, but I am going to touch on a couple that I think are important that I see every once in a while. One of them is going to be sight alignment. What I see a lot of people do is they'll, have their rifle at low ready, maybe they're shooting with a timer, and they'll go to shoot, and they'll do this. And what's happening there is I'm actually dropping my head and shrugging my shoulders, and they're doing that to get lined up with the sight. Now, maybe you don't have a riser on your red dot or a lower third mount like I do. Maybe your red dot's super low, and if you have to do that to see through your sight, you can still shoot okay like that. But you're going to get tired pretty quick. Your shoulders are going to get tired. Your neck's going to start hurting. What you want to do is kind of the same thing as shooting pistols, is you want your head to stay in the same place, and you just want that sight to come up into your line of sight. I'm just sitting here looking where I want the red dot to be, and then I'm bringing the red dot into my line of sight. And if you practice this enough, your red dot will just pop right up, right where you're looking, right where you want it to be, so that you can get your shots off faster. So to recap that, you don't want to drop your head and shrug your shoulders when you're shooting. You just want to bring that red dot up into your line of sight and try to keep your head in the same place without moving your neck as much as you can help it. And then the other thing that I just wanted to talk about quickly is trigger control, because I have had some questions about that from people that I know, and it's kind of funny with pistol shooting. Trigger control is one of, if not the most important fundamentals for being able to shoot well with a pistol. I've been shooting pistols for a long time, and I still struggle with trigger control. It's one of the hardest ones to get right. On a rifle, it's the complete opposite. This gun just has a standard mil-spec trigger group in it. It's heavy. It's like a 5-pound trigger. I can just slap the shit out of it all I want, and I'm never going to pull a shot off because of my terrible trigger control with a rifle, because if you're doing it right, you really shouldn't be using this hand for much. You shouldn't have a strong input with this hand. You shouldn't be squeezing with it. You have that good solid stock placement in your shoulder and that good backwards pressure with your left hand. This hand doesn't need to do anything. So if you have good stock placement and you're pulling back consistently with your left hand, you can slap the trigger all you want and shoot it as fast as you can, and you're not going to throw your rifle off. So when it comes to rifle shooting, if you have good form, trigger control just doesn't matter. It doesn't matter really like what part of the finger you put the trigger on. Doesn't matter how hard you pull it. Just pull the trigger. It's just that simple. From my experience, rifles are absolutely easier to shoot than pistols. They're easier to shoot accurately. They're easier to shoot fast. You just have a lot more to hold on to, and your input into the gun just doesn't do nearly as much as it does with a pistol. Doesn't affect the shot as much as it does with a pistol. So just to do one more final recap for you guys right at the end of the video. We got feet a little bit wider than shoulders. You're kicking 1 foot back a little bit, whichever one you're most comfortable with. Make sure that back foot is behind your shoulders so that you don't get rocked backwards while you're shooting. You're going to bring the gun up. You're going to keep the stock below your shoulder in that nice crack between your shoulder and your bicep. You're going to have your support hand here. You're going to be squeezing, and you're going to pull backwards into your shoulder, and you're just going to keep a good consistent backwards pressure. You're going to bring the sight up into your line of sight. You're not going to drop your head or shrug your shoulders. You're just going to bring it up. And that, in my opinion, is just the basics of a proper, good rifle shooting form. But now, I am just about out of water, so before I just pass away from heat exhaustion, I'm going to go ahead and end this video. If you guys have any questions you would like me to answer, go ahead and drop them down in the comments below. I'll do my best to read all of those. If you guys have any other tips for shooting rifles that you would like me to know or other people in the comments to know, definitely leave those down below as well. If you like this video and if it was helpful, I would really appreciate it if you could go down. English is hard, man. I would really appreciate it if you could go down and leave a like on the video. That helps me out in the algorithm to get this video shown to more people. And of course, subscribing helps out as well if you guys want to support my channel, if you enjoy the stuff that I do. And thank you guys so much for watching this video. I do hope you enjoyed it. And also remember, your rights don't end where someone else's feelings begin.